We've been doing our draft pairings, and it's one of the most fun series that I've done since I had this show, to be 100% honest with you guys. Looking at the draft pairings and what it means both on the court and off the court for the Chicago Bulls has been extremely fun to do and to talk about. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the potential pairing of Caleb Wilson at number 4 and Labaron Philon at number 15 and what that means for the Chicago Bulls as far as if that is the pairing that they end up having at 4 and 15. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the latest report about the Chicago Bulls trading up. And this one is a lot more realistic as it comes from Joe Cowley saying that the Bulls will only trade up in one specific scenario. So we're going to do that and talk about and respond to your voicemails as well. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And yesterday we talked about the potential draft pairing of Darren Peterson and Morez Johnson Jr., going so much as to talk about what the situation would be to get Darren Peterson to fall to number 4 to the Chicago Bulls, which is still admittedly a long shot. That's something that I don't really think is going to happen, but it was a fun pairing to talk about because I really like what that pairing can do for the Chicago Bulls. And in yesterday's episode, we got a voicemail from Vaughn who talked about the pairing of Caleb Wilson and Labaron Philon. Philon, let me get it there. My brain adds an extra I to his name, and I have no idea why. But Labaron Philon and what that could mean for the Chicago Bulls. So I want to talk about this pairing. And so looking at this, we already know why Caleb Wilson makes sense for the Bulls. Not only is he the most likely player to drop at number 4, per what we've heard, we have heard some things that he can go higher than that. But he just brings a player with the high motor, the high defensive floor, the athleticism that you look at. And while people have talked about and so focused so much on just his ability to shoot, I think a lot of fans have overlooked his ability to actually create on drives, create in the mid-range. It does have the ability to create separation in those areas, how he does protect the rim and all those different things. Like, Caleb Wilson brings a lot of exactly what you want and what this team has been missing. The size, the length, the defensive ability is all there. Labaron Philon is a player that we have talked a little bit about potentially being there at number 15 for the Bulls. And, with a balanced draft class, it can really work out, right? So let's focus on Caleb Wilson first, just briefly, right? We talked about it. He's one of the cleanest fits for this team. Slides right in there to pair in the front court with Modest Buzelis. Him and Modest would have the switchable ability there with Modest growing as a defender. Caleb Wilson is probably going to be a better defender day one. And then Modest is a more well-rounded offensive player, whereas Caleb Wilson is working on his offense. But as these players grow and develop together, they can become a really solid front court pairing, a modern front court pairing. You throw in Noa Essengue in that if he ends up working out as well, then you're getting there. But Caleb Wilson, the 19.8 points per game, the 9.4 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.4 blocks. We've talked about it. This kid impacts so many areas of the game that's there. The things that he can do: run the floor, finish above the rim, defend multiple positions. I think that he's a player that when you get all to it, he's going to be able to guard 3 and 4 positions at the next level, right? He also knows how to create in transition, which is really good. He rebounds outside of just the area that he's in, which is something that's special there. And that ability to be that 3-4-5 hybrid, I do think he's going to play some small ball 5 a little bit as well. There's there, right? It's so important for the Chicago Bulls to have that because the Bulls, after, of course, the trade deadline, we didn't have really any on-ball defenders. And one would say that we haven't had any above-average on-ball defenders on this team for a long time. And so when you look at what Caleb Wilson's role would be early for the Bulls, a transition finisher, a weak side defender, a cutter, somebody who can attack on the short roll, a small ball option 5 as well if they want to do that, and that long-term front court pairing with Modest Buzelis. The concern, of course, with him is still the shooting. It's going to be there. Caleb Wilson's three-point shot is the swing skill for him. If it works out, damn, he's going to be so much of a well-rounded player. But I think even if Caleb Wilson never develops into an above-average or a reliable three-point shooter, he still has so many other things in this game that works. But if he does, become a reliable three-point shooter, he's going to be a legit floor spacer with the ceiling that it would change dramatically if he's able to do that. Now, let's look at number 15 and Labaron Philon and what that could potentially mean for the Chicago Bulls. Philon would give the Bulls a little something different, right? 6'4", 184 pounds, 22 points, 3.5 rebounds, 5 assists per game. He shot 50% from the field as well. And when you look at it, of course, he is listed to go in that range of the top 15. Like Philon, if the Bulls are looking for a guard, Philon makes a lot of sense. And the thing that I like about Philon as well is that the dude is just tenacious. Like when you watch this kid play basketball, he has so much passion for the game of basketball. That is something that I know we should be able to say that, but you can't. Like, look at P. Will. One of the things that hurt P. Will wasn't just the skill or lack thereof. It was because the dude does not care about basketball that way. I don't have that worry about Philon at all. Now, the combine measurements for Philon, he came in at 6'2.5" and 176 pounds with a 6'6" wingspan, right? So that still with shoes puts him at 6'3", 6'4"-ish. And I know there's a concern, does that work in the backcourt with Josh Giddey, all that type of stuff? I'm more worried about the weight than I'm necessarily am the height, because I think that this kid plays big, and if you watch him play basketball, you've probably seen it too. Like, this kid plays big. He gives a damn about playing basketball, and he's tough. He's a tough son of a bitch. I love that, right? And so when you look at Philon and the things that he brings to the team, downhill creation, pick and roll scoring, either as to get other guys involved or to score himself. He has that potential of being a lead guard as well. And I really like what he can do as a cutter as well when he moves without the ball. I think when you look at it this way, right? What happens when you add these two guys, right? While Philon is not the biggest guard in this class, and he may not even be Bryson Graham's fits the physical profile that Bryson Graham likes the most. But I think when you look at this guy, like he brings something with the speed and the tenacity and all that type of stuff. And when you look at why this pairing works, is because it's not just about guard and front court, but I think it's about how they solve and add different strengths and solve different problems to this team. Caleb Wilson becomes that guy that's longer, faster, versatile defensively, all those type of things. Philon becomes a guy that can help create in the half court, especially where the Bulls have faltered at for a long time, is their half court creation. He adds that one. And I think that matters because, yeah, we know that Josh Giddey is a really good connector, and that's good. And that's perfectly fine. He's more of a connector than a scoring guard. Philon can score while also being able to handle some of those on-ball creation duties for others when Josh Giddey sits. Philon can do those things, right? So I think there's a fit there clearly when it comes down to it. Wilson is the high-level athlete that's ridiculous. Philon becomes a creator that has the tenacity that can get shit done. I think when you look at it now, the question is if a Philon and Josh Giddey backcourt can work. Josh Giddey has the size, he creates the tempo, he passes, and he rebounds. Philon puts the downhill pressure, the scoring, and the pick and roll creation. Much like we saw Trey Jones and Josh Giddey be some of the best Bulls basketball that we saw when those guys were on the court together, I do think there's a world where you can say that. Now, is it the long-term pairing that you want? That would have to be determined by how you build your center is going to be really important in that one. So there is some questions there. But I do think when you look at a young trio, Philon, Modest, Wilson, if Noa Essengue, and with Josh Giddey as well, those guys end up working out, you start having a nice, really solid core there that you can start building around, right? So part of the benefits of a Philon and Wilson pairing is that it gives you guard creation, front court upside, which is really good. I think that it does support the Josh Giddey and Modest Buzelis, parts of this team as well. And I think that those two guys, and Caleb Wilson and Philon, bring something that you lost with Coby White and Ayo going in a more functional and cheaper right now way also. Coby White gave the Chicago Bulls shot creation. Philon can bring that. Ayo brought the downhill scoring, the defensive pressure, the competitiveness. Caleb Wilson can bring that, right? And so I think that this fits the reset that we saw from the Chicago Bulls, and I think that it just works. Now, why is it a concern? Because I think we got to talk about the concerns. It really comes down to how much you feel like you can live with Philon's size. At 6'4", measuring in at 177 pounds, he isn't that type of jumbo guard that like a Keaton Wagler we heard the Chicago Bulls could be targeting, that type of stuff. Do we have enough spacing around Caleb Wilson, which would matter at that point in time too? So I look at this potential pairing of Philon and Caleb Wilson, and I say this. It gives the Bulls a balance with the draft. And that's really what I'm trying to do with these pairings is find balance, right? Caleb Wilson gives the Bulls the body type and the style, the competitiveness, the defense that they want. Philon gives them a guard that can put pressure on opposing defenses. And I think that's the way that you have to look at it. And I guess we'll see if that works out for the Chicago Bulls, because it seems like, based off the rumors, and it could be just putting fillers out there to throw other teams off, but it feels like right now where the Bulls are going to go is forward and guard. That's what it feels like they're targeting. We'll see if that actually ends up being the case. But let me know down below how you guys feel about that pairing and if it makes sense for the Chicago Bulls. Let me know that down below. With that said, let's get into the next topic. Joe Cowley over at the Chicago Sun-Times had an article in which he talked about the Chicago Bulls and the situations in which they would trade up. Direct quote from Joe Cowley is this: "From what I've been told, the only way that they would move up from the 15th pick is a spot or two. Whether it's Charlotte, Miami, or whoever is in that 13-14 range, it would be just, hey, we really like this guy. We know you like Yaxel or Mara, and we won't pick them. Let's flip, and we'll give you 2 seconds. It would be small. It would be a small jump." So this is kind of directly in conflict with what we heard, that the Bulls can move into the top 10, specifically to get Keaton Wagler, which they would have to get a move in to get that. And so, take this, like I said, with everything with a grain of salt, right? Like, Joe Cowley is Joe Cowley. You guys know how I feel about Joe Cowley. I say that all the time, right? But Joe Cowley has had times where he's absolutely on point. So if what he's saying right now is that the Bulls aren't looking at the major jump, they're looking at a smaller jump up just a couple of spots at 13 or 14 or something like that, that doesn't take as many assets that you're doing, and you're basically just moving up to make sure that you can get your guy, and who that guy is, because it's definitely not going to be Keaton. If you're talking about only moving up a couple of spots, is it Braden Burries? Is it like, what are you targeting there? I guess that remains to be seen, but that's at least what Joe Cowley is saying that he hears. And not to say that he hasn't actually heard that, but I'll say this: is it the sexy thing, the sexy headline? No. Is it the more functional and realistic move? Yeah, it is the more realistic move, to be 100% honest with you. And so I think that hearing that from Joe Cowley, it makes a lot of sense if that ends up being the case, that they make that smaller move rather than a huge one. We just got to see what's going to happen. And let me know what you guys think on that down below. If the Bulls end up making only a smaller move that's only moving up a couple of spots and they're using a couple of seconds to get that done, let me know, right? But I think this does support the fact that Bryson Graham is doing his due diligence. He's not panicking. He's not trying to make the splash move. He's just trying to do something that makes sense for him to get a guy that he has probably identified as somebody he wants and needs on this team. Is that the difference between being able to get Cam Carr and not? Maybe. And maybe we'll see what that means for the Chicago Bulls. But all right, let's get into the voicemails for today, man. This first voicemail that we got, this one is from Ice.
What up, Haize? It's your boy, Ice Noah. You know what I'm saying? I ain't hit you up in a minute, but just wanted to get your take on a couple of things. So I was wondering, you know how they keep saying the Bulls want to trade up in the draft, but what if they want to trade? Because, I know people keep talking about, oh, we don't want to rush things, but it's not technically rushing. It's just picking and choosing. I feel like it's just picking and choosing, you know what I'm saying, what this draft is, you know what I'm saying, compared to future drafts. So what if we kept the 15th pick, drafted at 4, and took our second round in next year's first and moved up into the lottery again to get like a Keith Wagner, or, you know what I'm saying, and then at 15 we drafted that Jaden Quinton, and then, you know what I'm saying, Wilson or Cameron or Darren, whoever at 4th, you know what I'm saying? Like, what if we did that? Like, what you think about that?
keep the 15th pick and use a future first with 38 to get back into the first round. I'm not going to say that that's impossible. I do think this, you have to keep in mind that the next year's draft is not supposed to be, the next two drafts aren't supposed to be nearly as deep. So what value does that have comparative to moving back into the first round in this draft? That's what you have to ask yourself. And I don't know how much a 2027 first is worth versus and that pick's probably going to be low first round, mid first round at best. What that is compared to moving into the end or the middle of the first round in this draft. So we just got to see what's going to happen. I do think you're probably going to have to move 15 to move up in this draft, but hey, it's not bad to think outside the box and think if the Bulls can take advantage of different assets. Let's just see what they do. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Nev.
Hey, Haize, this is Nev. Just want to start out by saying R.I.P. Stacey King. He was a really entertaining announcer. He will be missed by all the Bulls fans. I'm really sad that he was unable to see, the next chapter in the Bulls' future with the change in, with AK to Mr. Graham. But I know he's going to be watching from above, and I'm still sure he's going to be rooting and, being extra like he normally is animated about the new draft pick that we're going to get, or the new draftees we're going to get. But for those that, have lost somebody suddenly, I trust me, I understand that losing two family members within 6 months apart of each other. So it's not easy, but, you guys will get through it as a fandom. Bull Nation is like a family. So, family help each other through, stuff like this. So just keep your head up, Chicago. We'll be all right. I think as long as we're positive and excited, I know we're doing what Stacey would want from us, as a fan base. But I want to say that. And then also, too, I wanted to say I agree with your takes on not trading from 15. I want to stay at 15. I think we could get a solid player at 15, and we don't need to attach any assets to move up unless it's like a Jalen Smith or a Trey Jones. I don't mind using them hypothetically to move up if a team would see value in them to move up. Maybe even like to where OKC or the Golden State Warriors are in terms of that area of the draft. Not saying that they will, take extra players. I know OKC's, up against it with the roster space, but still moving up wouldn't be bad unless it's like not attaching any future assets. We need to, keep our assets as they are. But staying at 15 is perfectly fine with me. Lastly, the coach, if we sign Splitter or Nori, I think those are B to B plus hirings. I think long term, Splitter would be a great hire, and I think it may become an A hire in the long term. I'm not really sure about Nori long term for a rebuild given his age, but other than that, I do think he's a solid coach. But I'm really excited, and hopefully we get a new coach soon. And go Bulls.
Of course, RIP Stacey King. That goes without saying. Using Jalen Smith or Trey Jones to trade up could be ideal if a team values them. Like you talk about, like the Golden State Warriors. Like they're a team that's going to need to fill out their bench. They waited till like right before training camp to fill out their bench last year. You get guys like Trey or Jalen there. They can definitely help, right? So, you have a lot of teams that are kind of in that middle part of the lottery that are actual playoff teams that maybe you can. Like, let's say even the Detroit Pistons at 21, right? The Toronto Raptors at 19. Maybe these are teams that you can move up with and use and dangle actual usable veteran pieces to get that done. Just got to see if that's going to be what those teams want. But if those deals are out there, I do expect Bryson Graham to try to find them, and we'll see what's going to happen. And yeah, head coach hopefully coming soon, real soon. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Vaughn.
What's good, Haize? This is Vaughn from Indianapolis. I thought you made a great point on the Friday show about the pairings and, being able to balance offense and defense. In athleticism and or I should say non-athleticism, but athleticism and average athleticism. I think what a lot of Bulls fans don't understand, just from reading your comments and stuff, maybe not even a lot, but man, look at the teams in the finals. I don't know if Bulls fans look enough at what it looks like. These guys defend. They're long. They're athletic. I think Bryson Graham gets that. But you're talking about Champagnie. You're talking about Vassell. You're talking about Castle. What players do the Bulls have like that? So what I'm saying is, if we're going to keep Giddey and roll with people like that, I mean, you cannot have a Giddey, a Boozer, and a Steinbach. You just can't do it. So you have to balance, some athleticism, some rim running. I would be cool, definitely, with the Boozer Quaintance pairing. I think the Boozer Sinak pairing would be cool as well. Now, again, with Caleb Wilson, you could probably go a couple different directions. He's not the polished scorer Boozer is. I mean, maybe you could go Steinbach if you got Wilson, Steinbach at 15. But I think what this Bulls team needs to do is add athleticism. You have to be able to guard multiple positions. Let's even look at the Knicks, OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. So I think Bulls fans need to do a better job of paying attention to what successful teams look like and kind of get out of their head about this is a fan favorite or they're putting up these kind of numbers. Let's look at what successful NBA teams look like. You got switchable players. You got, threes and fours that can guard twos. We do not have that. And that's what the Bulls need to be building towards. So to your point, I think if we do end up with Boozer at 4, I think a guy like Quaintance or Sinak would be a good pairing. Keep up the great work, guy. Peace.
Listen, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but also don't overlook the fact that Jalen Brunson is on one of those teams. Luke Cornett is playing on those teams. You have this idea sometimes that you lock into these things and then you try to ignore the other things that are around the team. You do need those. I do agree. You need switchable. You need length. You need athleticism. You need players that can guard multiple positions. You absolutely need that. But I think you're overlooking how the engine of some of those teams go. Like the New York Knicks, the engine is Jalen Brunson. He's what makes that team go. He's what gets that team over the top. He's one of the worst defenders in the league, right? He gives effort. Sometimes he's just too small. So you have that part of it, right? So you got to look at that. De'Aaron Fox isn't necessarily the best defender on the San Antonio Spurs. And then even the team that you mentioned, the Spurs, look at how they are. They're down 3-1 right now, right? So they're young, though. And that's the reason they're young. But I think those things matter. You have to look at it's all about building a team. And you can't ignore when you go into things and say, oh, you can't have guys like Giddey and Boozer. You don't know that because, listen, a lot of people would have said that about Jalen Brunson. It's how you build the team, how you coach that team. That's an important part, but you do need some pieces that are important to becoming a winning team. All right, let's get into this last voicemail, man. This one's from Donovan.
What's going on, Haize? What's going on, team? It's your boy Donovan, man. And I've been just, sitting here thinking, R.I.P. Stacey King, man. It didn't really hit me, but it is sitting with me right now, man. It's tough. R.I.P. them, man. He will be missed for sure. And it's no replacing him, really. It's just kind of like trying to find something new, I guess. But that's beyond what I'm saying right now. I think the Bulls are next up, and it's not like, oh, we got a couple years. Yeah, we got a couple years for sure. So we're true contenders, like preseason favorites type stuff, but it definitely depends on the coaching hire. Like we got to get this coaching hire correct. I do think that was, even though we were trying to win, I think that was Billy Donovan's strength. It was kind of to a fault, obviously. But, if we had these lottery rules the past 5 years, we'd have had like 6 first round or first overall picks. But anyway, that was always his bread and butter. Like, we would always win more games or just about the same games. Maybe that was our ceiling type stuff, but he was a major part in our winning. So I think that our new coach will definitely have to play a part in it. But when I'm looking at the East, Like, there's some good teams in the East for sure. It's not the West, nowhere near the West. But when it comes to the middle of the East, it's always like a write-off type thing. Like, the West has definitely impressed, and it's hard to beat a team in the West that's middle of the pack, say in the playoffs or just any time, versus the East. So when I'm looking at it like that, and I'm like, yeah, we could be another play-in team as a rebuilding team. That's a success for sure. But obviously, we can make it out the play-in if we play our cards right. Now, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but all I'm saying is we can add the players and the coaches to be very good in the East and surprise a lot of people. And I don't know why, but I see that.
The Bulls rebuild could be accelerated by a few things. I'll say this. Of course, the proper coaching and development. That goes without saying. That can definitely accelerate a rebuild. Modest making a leap, a step. Josh Giddey continue to refine his game. And then the 2 picks plus Noa Essengue. Do those 3 players end up turning into something, right? And how quickly do the players that we drafted this year actually turn into something real and tangible? If those things happen, 2 to 3 years of the Bulls like competing for the 8th seed isn't out the realm of possibility. If who we draft at 4 hits that superstar ceiling very early, hell, it's not impossible that it could be less than that. We just got to see, but just pump your brakes. And I'm not saying that you're not, but like, let's just let this process play out and let's see it and go through it and develop it, because it's just going to take some time. And I think that's perfectly fine as long as what you build is sustainable after you take that time to get it done. So let's see. But that's going to do it for today's episode, man. I want to thank you to all the callers. Thank you for you guys for watching the show on the channel, man, and supporting us like you do. Let me know your thoughts on everything down below as far as the pairing of Caleb Wilson and Labaron Philon. What do you guys think about hearing the Bulls could only trade up a couple of spots? And then how do you feel about any of the topics from the voicemails? Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. If you send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.